And now, this week we catch up with the editorial gang from Inside Motorcycles magazine, after spending a couple of days hanging around with 4 Boulevard bullies. I'm speaking, of course, about a fairly new class of motorcycles known as power cruisers, city slickers for the most part, designed mainly to get from A to B with as much eye-catching, head-turning appeal as possible. In this class, wind protection and all-day comfort definitely take a back seat to raw power, paint, and chrome. But which one is the overall winner in this year's crop of power cruiser contenders? Would it be Yamaha's wicked 98 cubic inch air-cooled Roadstar Warrior, or Kawasaki's nasty 1500cc liquid-cooled Mean Streak? What about the biggest V-twin in the bunch, Honda's VTX 1800? Or the smallest V-twin in the bunch, Harley-Davidson's 1000cc liquid-cooled V-Rod? Colin Fraser of Inside Motorcycles picks up the tail of the tape after a day on the dyno and the runway at Picton's private airport in the Lochsloyd Business Park.
They all do everything. I mean, looking good is the most important thing, but as we know, credibility is a big issue. If you throw a lot of plastic doodads and garbage on your motorcycle so it looks good from a distance, your street credibility is exactly zero. So you got to be able to walk the walk. These are not highway bikes. You know, people who buy these, they're expensive motorcycles and they're not meant for the highway. They're not very comfortable. The riding position isn't conducive to long distances. So you're looking at a fairly finite nature of how you'd ride these bikes. They're more urban, more stop and go traffic. A lot of slow running, which is funny for a bike with a raked out look and slow steering, yet that is the kind of performance you have to have with these, but they have to be able to go and they have to be able to stop, and given their relatively limited ground clearance, they actually all handle pretty well. They've got stiff frames and there's been a lot more thought put into that element of what we think of as sports biking, but with the foot pegs way out ahead of you and your weight pulled back. Another thing that we have glossed over to this point is fit and finish, appearance, the paint work, the detailing is really important on these bikes because they're going to be parked in the Boulevard. You're going to be standing around kicking tires, looking at them, talking about that. The Harley, the details are beautiful on this bike. It's quite distinctive. We've also noticed that bikes like the strange candy apple green on the Honda, all the detailing, including the weird instruments on the Yamaha, seem to be geared towards riding at night, right? That these bikes are going to be looked at
Boulevard
under artificial
cruising.
Lights. When you're riding it, it will be nighttime. So they're actually, it looks to us as if they're trying to tweak these bikes with the thought that you'll be basing your opinion on how happy you are with your purchase on a lot of nighttime weekend type riding.
Right. So Mark, what is the key element you're looking for here ultimately? Is it power or is it looks?
Well, I think when you're purchasing a power cruiser, you're looking for a bit of both, and certainly power is pretty high on the list, but I think you have to look for looks as well. I mean, I certainly want to look good when I'm riding my power cruiser down the road, and I'd also want to kick a little bit of butt too. So I think both are high on the list of key elements.
So what have you been doing with the bikes over the last couple of days?
Well, yesterday actually we spent some time in the Parts Canada dyno and put all these things to the test. I measured their torque, measured their horsepower, and the V-Rod here really stomped them in the horsepower, just over 100. And Yamaha's Warrior was the top of the list in torque with just over 97. And the VTX was a close second in torque with 95. So they're up there, but horsepower for the V-Rod and the Yamaha has the torque.
Now what about the drag strip stuff we were doing earlier this morning? How important is that?
I don't think that's actually high on the list of importance for these power cruisers. Everybody wants, image, I think, and they want to know how much torque and power it has. That's not high, but it's nice to know. You want to be able to know you're going to outdrag your buddy if you have a power cruiser.
So which way is the group leaning now that they've spent a couple of days with the bikes? What do you think is going to be the ultimate winner?
So far I think the V-Rod's looking really good. A lot of people have been impressed with that. I know I have been. These things aren't great on the highway, and so I'm trying not to be too picky about that. But you get down to regular cruising speeds and just hanging around town, or even around 100 Ks, and they're all pretty nice bikes, but I've been really impressed with the V-Rod.
Now it's the most expensive in the bunch.
Yes.
Does that factor in when you're doing something like this?
Sure it does. I mean, who can spend 32 Gs on a motorcycle every week? That's a lot of money, and you got to be able to afford it.
Right.
There's a lot to choose from. I think you'd be happy with all of them. So if you're looking for something under 20, you got 3 great bikes here to choose from.